Okay, so in the world of Christian evangelism, there's this quiet but pretty intense crisis brewing. And it's not about if you should share your faith, but how you're supposed to measure success. Is it all about the numbers you can count, or is it about a kind of faithfulness that you can't? We're going to break down this clash of philosophies that honestly gets right to the heart of the entire mission.
You've heard this, right? I'm willing to bet you have. Maybe you've even said it yourself. It's a phrase that has become this powerful motto, one that justifies a ton of effort and really captures a very specific and super popular motivation for doing evangelism.
And look, let's be clear. The heart behind this is totally in the right place. The whole idea is to say that a single person's soul is so valuable that no amount of time or money or effort is ever wasted if it helps bring just one person over the line. It's a powerful way of thinking, and it's deeply, deeply focused on results.
But here's where the big challenge comes in. A pretty radical question is being asked. What if this laser focus on getting the one has, maybe without anyone meaning for it to, actually corrupted the mission itself? What if it's changed not just the methods we use, but the very message we're sharing?
And we're not just talking about a small disagreement here. The source frames it as a full-blown crisis. The argument is that there's been this big philosophical shift, one that values numbers and decisions way more than anything else. And to really get it, we have to look at the idea that's driving this whole chase.
And that idea? It's called pragmatism. Put simply, it's the belief that if it works, it must be good. So when you apply that to evangelism, the best methods automatically become the ones that get the most people to sign on the dotted line. The practical result becomes the only thing that matters.
This table really lays it all out, side by side. On one hand, you have the results-driven view. The goal is winning souls. The method is, well, whatever works. And the message? It often gets softened up to be a little more palatable. But then you've got the faithfulness-driven critique, which flips the whole thing on its head. The motive is to glorify God, the method is just proclaiming the biblical message, and that message has to be presented in full. Yep, even the tough parts.
The source's author, Ryan Denton, doesn't pull any punches here. He argues that this desire for converts at any cost isn't just a bad strategy. He says it shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what biblical evangelism is even supposed to be about in the first place.
So what happens when you follow this results-driven thinking? Well, according to the source, a few things. You get a watered-down message designed not to offend anyone. You get pastors and missionaries feeling this immense pressure to hit their numbers. You get everyday believers feeling like complete failures if they don't see people converting. And maybe worst of all, you could be bringing people into churches who aren't genuine converts. So if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, it's a call to completely redefine what success even means. It's about shifting the focus away from the fruit, the conversions, and putting it squarely on the faithfulness of the person who's sharing the message. And here's where that redefinition gets really specific. In this view, evangelism is defined by the act of sharing, not by the outcome. Success isn't measured by whether someone says yes, but simply by whether the good news was presented faithfully and accurately. The job is proclamation, full stop.
To make this super clear, the source uses this really great analogy about fishing. Step 1 is the evangelist's job. Just make sure the hook, the gospel message, is presented clearly and gets firmly fixed in the listener's mind. That's it. Your job is done. Step 2, actually pulling the fish out of the water, is described as the Holy Spirit's job, something that humans can't manipulate or force with clever strategies.
And just to hammer home how different these two worldviews are, take a look at this quote. This is the view the author is critiquing. It defines failure as a lack of a final, ultimate conversion. It puts all the pressure, all the weight of the final result, squarely on the evangelist's shoulders. It's the total opposite of just faithfully setting the hook.
Okay, so where does this all lead? If you actually adopt this faithfulness model, what happens in the real world? Well, the source argues the outcomes are often not what you'd expect. In fact, they can be kind of scandalous.
The argument goes something like this. When you proclaim the whole message, without sanding down the rough edges, you're almost guaranteed to get a strong reaction. But that reaction isn't always going to be positive.
First, and maybe this isn't a huge surprise, it can lead to straight-up hostility from the outside world. The source points to things like arrests and persecution as historically common results of a bold, unvarnished message. But then comes the real kicker. The source claims that some of the sharpest attacks are going to come from inside the house, from fellow Christians who think this approach is just too harsh, too confrontational, and who much prefer a more sugar-coated version of the message.
Wow. I mean, this chart just lays it bare, doesn't it?
On one side, you have the Apostle Paul's actual ministry resume, getting thrown in jail, beaten, stoned, causing riots. And on the other side, you've got the ideal resume for a modern church leader. The two could not be more different, and it really forces you to ask, what do we actually consider successful ministry today?
But it's not all about pointing fingers at others. The critique also turns inward, highlighting this really surprising paradox that can pop up within the very group that champions this faithfulness view. A tendency to, well, not do anything.
And here's the paradox. You can get so obsessed with having the perfect theology, with dotting every single doctrinal I and crossing every T, that you develop what's called a procrastinating spirit. Because let's face it, real-world evangelism is messy and unpredictable. It feels a lot safer to just stay in the library and study. And what's the result? You get a movement that is theologically perfect but practically frozen.
And to try and shake people out of that, writer Jeremy Walker gives this incredible analogy. He says, it's like being a lifeguard standing next to a filthy swimming pool. This isn't the time to be smug about your perfect rescue technique or to complain about how dirty the water is. Now is the time to jump into that filthy water and do whatever you can to save people who are drowning. It's a call to messy action, not just perfect accuracy.
And so all of this leaves us right here with this one final, really challenging question to think about. It sums up the entire debate. When it comes to a message, any message, what is the true measure of its success? Is it how popular it is, how many people accept it, or is it its purity, how faithfully it sticks to the original truth? That is the question at the very heart of this clash over evangelism.